Hello, everyone. My name is Grace, and welcome to the 2023 Medical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases Bioinformatics Workshop. So this workshop was held online last year. Jill and I started, and we recruited graduate students to be instructors, and we gave the workshop, but it was given in a lecture format, so 30 to 45 minutes of us just talking, which made it really difficult for some people to follow along. So we did this year, we decided to make it in person for people who like to get hands-on help, as well as we'll try to stretch out so that materials in between the slides, we can do a hands-on instead of just lecturing through. And then I'll give people to opportunity to try it out. And if they have issue they're encountering, we can help out. So we're not just fixed on our agenda. Okay, so I am a master's student. I'm actually near the end of my master's program. I am a master's student at the Medical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases Department. And I also have affiliation with the National Microbiology Lab. So I do most of my research at the Public Health Agency of Canada. So I'm not really on the Bannatyne campus, but if you ever need to reach out to me, feel free to email me or send me a Slack channel if you've already joined. So because we're trying to stretch it out for everybody to get a chance to work on it, today's session is really introductory and basics of everything. So like installing programs to prepare you for the upcoming workshops, which will probably be more relevant and more useful for everybody, depending on which workshops you decide to attend. So just a note for everybody, because we are also making it freely available and we wanted to make it available after the workshop is over. We are recording every workshop session and posting it on our YouTube channel. So today's not the end. If you missed it today, it's not the end. You can always refer back to it later after we post the stuff on our YouTube channel. And you'll be able to find our channel by typing MMID Bioinformatics Workshop. And for a live Q&A session, so we have Rose Chan, who's an awesome technology and webmaster chair. She have set up Slido website for people to participate anonymously if you'd like to keep your name out of your questions. And so if you want to ask questions, there is a Q&A. You can click on go to the website and put your participation code and click live Q&A session to ask questions. And we'll have volunteers like Rose and also Jill, who's on our co-coordinator, to monitor the questions, and also other volunteer TAs available. And there's no such thing as bad or stupid questions, so feel free to ask. And something like this is not working, that's also a good question, because something might not work in different operating system. And by you letting us know, we also know how to deal with other operating systems that we've never used. Okay, so for our workshop, the schedule is as follows. So today is the very introduction. Next week, I will go into more Bash and the coding, the basics of how to code in Bash, like using a shell script, and also install Conda environment, what it is for tool installation. Then go into genomics and viral data analysis. So my research was on SARS-CoV-2 whole genome sequencing. So I am a virus person and I don't know anything about the bacterial side. So I will touch briefly on the viral data analysis, and then the following 4 weeks, it will be all bacteria. So if you are a bacteriologist and you need help with bacteriology data analysis, you have Jill and Taylor to go over the materials with you. And the last 2 sessions are not scheduled lecture or workshop. It's just bioinformatics workshop, which is similar to a hackathon, but they're more like you can bring your own data set. And if you have any problems that you've encountered throughout your research, you will need some help with something as simple as Excel or even R, you're trying to get this data to visualize, but it's not working. You can bring all that questions, and you can also bring your friends, and you guys can have a sit down in a theater. We've booked a theater for these workshops, or anywhere else. If you want to hang out with your friend and work on the data, feel free to do so. So we just ask that if you decide to come in person, please register on Eventbrite. There is no limit on the on the ticket number. So yeah, just register and let us know, because we just need to keep track of who's coming to the workshop for department information purposes. Okay, with that, so for today's workshop is very, very brief. Just me explaining about what bioinformatics is and how, maybe like I'll give an example of how I use bioinformatics in health science research, but maybe there are some other people who have used cool bioinformatics tools for their own research, and describe the benefits of using command line interface. Why are we trying to teach you how to code instead of using like a graphical user interface? And also help you install bash terminals or a terminal emulator, depending on which operating system you are using, and RStudio. So this is just for people who are in person, and if you're not a student or a staff at the University of Manitoba, are there anyone here? Do you guys all have Wi-Fi set up? Yeah, okay. So just if you decide to come on the last two workshops and you're not U of M student or staff, you can use U of M guest to connect to the Wi-Fi, but it's very limited. If you're from another university, you can also use Eduroam, but once again, it's very limited speed if multiple people are using. So if you need to have anything downloaded beforehand, that'd be a better option. But we do have a Wi-Fi available for people who need to use it briefly for the workshop. All right, so the bioinformatics, really it's bioinformatics. It's a word biology and informatics together. It is an application of computer technology to collect, store, analyze, and interpret data to understand the biological data. So there is also computational biology. The major difference between bioinformatics versus computational biology is that bioinformatics is more coming from the computer programming side. So they require more computer programming, and you need to kind of think from the computer's perspective to increase your efficiency of like data analysis tools. So when you're talking to someone who's working in bioinformatics, they'll probably be asking, when you're using this, how long did it take to run? Like, can we cut down that number of hours of data analysis to maybe like from 10 hours to 4 hours or even 2 hours? So those are more like bioinformatics. That's where we think from. So we want to increase the efficiency of your data analysis, but also improve your accuracy. Whereas computational biology is more focused on big data, like big picture of your data. What does your data tell you? And what kind of tools can we use to get to the point we want to answer our question? So in order to do really computational biology, I think it is important to understand from the basic side, like not more basics, but it's more from like computer side, like because you're trying to use a tool to make it to use for your research. So I think it is important to understand a bit of bioinformatics and how coding and the computer works in general. And once you have the knowledge, it will help you to figure out which tools and what kind of right questions you can ask to find your answer to run the analysis. So bioinformatics kind of it began to flourish more once we had the big data generation. So that's like early 2000 when the sequencing, so next generation sequencing began to develop and started to get used more often in the labs. They're like, well, now we have so much data. How can we analyze and make use of this data? But it's too much data for a person to manually analyze. So they decided to kind of look into computers to automate the repetitive task and help them analyze in a much quicker fashion. So bioinformatics, because we're using computer programming, it's to improve software efficiency and quicker data analysis. We need to understand how they can get used in the bioinformatics, like in the health science research, and then use and decide what kind of interface we should use. So for an example of an application of bioinformatics, this is based on what my research was. So if you go into like Canada COVID-19 pandemic, COVID-19 health info database, you see some graph that looks like explains the variant, SARS-CoV-2 variant breakdown, how how many percentage of samples were Omicron, how many were Delta Alpha. These were the data we sequenced at the Public Health Agency of Canada, as well as other provincial labs across Canada. And we've generated genome sequence data. It's a consensus data. So it's like a FASTA data, just a list of nucleotides. But we use that to make summary of our metadata and use the visualization. So you can do the same thing in R. You can program it, and we've used a visualization tool and various bioinformatics tools to summarize the data into a format that's easily understood by most people. If I tell you, oh yeah, we've sequenced the 3,000 samples and that were Omicron out of like 30,000 samples, it's kind of hard to understand. But if you have something like Graph that summarizes the whole research, it's very easy to also communicate your results to the non-science community. So that's one example of bioinformatics, when the coding would come in, and also the tree. So it's really hard to know, well, yeah, we found Omicron, but does that really mean anything? But if we can map it onto like a worldwide map and see which type of variants are circulating more commonly in USA versus Asia, this is more meaningful, and this is where now epidemiology group would make use of our data. So something like this can be done using bioinformatics and bioinformatics tools, and this is done using Auspice. And I believe Taylor will touch upon briefly on the converting metadata into useful data for our GG3 workshop. So that will be in April 6th and 13th. So this is one example. And I've been working with COVID for so long that this is mostly what I've encountered for the past 2-3 years. But I'm pretty sure there are people who've done RNA sequencing data analysis. So you have like HIV data. You can build bioinformatics pipeline to determine which mRNAs are being expressed in the cell line versus not when you've infected virus. And so those are examples. There are so many applications of bioinformatics in health science research, and that's why we emphasize it's important now you get started on bioinformatics journey. Now the third and last me giving a spiel is describing the benefit of command line interface. I mean, we already have like graphical user interface, like, but why would we want to use command line over something that we can click, get out of our comfort zone? Now, like graphical user interface is something that everybody can, if you go on a website, that's the graphical user interface. So you can easily click through. This is a bit tiny to see, but if you are familiar with something like Galaxy is a graphical user interface. It makes it easy for people to start their data analysis by clicking different tools that they need, and they just upload their data, then they can run it, and they'll get the results. But what it actually do is in the background, graphical user interface all have command line interface. So anything that you click on it is linked to certain function on the terminal or PowerShell, or depending on like a Python, whichever programming language it's using, it's always associated with some kind of function, and it automatically submits the job using that function on your command line interface. Now, because of that, the problem with graphical user interface is that it actually takes up a lot more resource to make it look fancy and easy to use. But if you use something like Black Terminal, it's very easy for you to, it's very speedy. It is difficult to get used to it at first, but it will speed up your analysis because you're getting rid of that initial step of you clicking through. And if you have like 100+ data points to analyze, you're not going to manually go through one by one to click all the tools to submit jobs. But in the command line interface, you can automate the task and also submit multiple jobs at once. So that's why it will speed up so much of your time. And get rid of your repetitive task from your workflow. So it'll be more efficient and you'll save a lot of time by doing that. And command line interface, eventually the functions that you type on your terminal will get processed into the computer or supercomputer if you are using Westgrid at the University of Manitoba or other type of server computer or NML. We have like a cluster where everybody submits their job and it's a high computing power, high performance computing server. And in the end, you will get the same result. So something from here where you have initial data, you get an output with nice graphical visualization, or it could be something else that what you ever need. So because we're getting rid of this GUI step, we are speeding up the whole process and it will help you automate your task in the future. And another thing I just found it was funny. When I was running, this is not my work, but I had the similar experience when I was trying to analyze data on Excel. It took forever and it eventually crashed my server when I was at different lab before. We had no computing, like high computing power, high performance computers available. So I had to use whatever was available on my own computers, but it slowed down the whole process eventually to crash the whole system. Whereas once I started using command line, the same job task would take about 5 minutes and my computer wouldn't crash. So that's already a very big difference. And if you see like, sometimes you'll see like CPU usage. I don't know if you're interested in that, but if you compare the CPU, the amount of power, like a resource that graphical user interface use is very high compared to this black terminal. So that's another way you can improve your efficiency of the workflow and save your computer resource for other tasks that might be more useful. Okay, so now today we're just really doing the installation and kind of getting started with the bash. So I will show you how to install bash if you haven't done already. So there are, like, you can choose which ones you want to use. I know there are some Windows and Mac users. If you're on Mac, you already have terminal emulator. So you already have a Z shell, I believe. So if you have Mac, you don't really need to use it. But if you want to practice in somewhere that's safer environment, you can download Virtual Machine. So Virtual Machine is a good starter program to get you started on coding. If you are scared, maybe like if you don't want to mess up your computer system by accident, Virtual Machine is a good way to get started because it is essentially you're having a computer in a computer. So if you mess up anything inside the virtual machine, you just get rid of that virtual machine, but your original computer system is safe. For example, today I decided to do some experiment and I mucked up my registration editor. So that if I had used virtual machine, I wouldn't have any problem, but I had to reinstall the whole, I had to do like factory reset. Essentially what I did was factory resetting my laptop. So if you don't want something like that to happen when you're trying exploring different things, maybe virtual machine is a good option to go. And it's really simple to download. You need to just download the virtual box and select the right platform. So if you're on Windows, select the Windows host. If you're on Linux, use a Linux or Mac. I'm not sure if OS X is for Mac, but you can install that. And once you've installed, you also install Ubuntu. Ubuntu is like it's an operating system for Linux, and it has Bash terminal by default. Okay, so maybe for people who are interested, I can quickly. Okay, so Oracle, if you type on your Google or anywhere website, if you click type on Oracle VirtualBox, it will pop up. The first thing, And it's very simple website. So you go to this website and you click downloads. And here you see an option. Yeah, so there is Mac operating system, Windows, or Linux. I don't think we have many Linux users here. So you download the file. Yeah, well, I already had it. So you can start and just follow exactly what it had. It will like use a default option. Just install using default option and wait for people to do that. Maybe give them 2 minutes. And while we're waiting, do you have any questions? Yeah. Are you on Windows 11? Oh, I also have the same problem. You'd have to install that through terminal. But it will let you, if you have a problem with like a Python, it will still allow you to install through.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Are you also on Windows 11? Yeah, so Windows 11 doesn't have 2019 C++ default like distributable package. So you just need to, I can actually show you how to do it. So Oracle VirtualBox should work and install fine on Windows 10 operating system. It's the Windows 11 that they use later version of C++. So if you go onto the website, if you have problem installing Oracle Box and it's asking you the C++, you type on the website Microsoft C++ 2019 redistributable. And the first thing, so the first thing that pops up here, click on the Microsoft website and look for Visual Studio 2019. And if you click on ARM60, I think ARM64, then you will get that file downloaded and click on it to install. See if that works. Actually, I would recommend this iTech-Tix. So you just have to scroll down a bit further down. And there's iTech-Tix. Download Microsoft Visual C++, all versions. It will show you all the list that you can download. So if you're on Windows 11, you go down this website and click on download Visual C++ 2019 redistributable 64-bit, and it should pop up. Yeah, then that will push you through the download. Okay, once you have that downloaded, anybody have other questions? Once you have the VirtualBox downloaded, you also need the Ubuntu. This is an ISO that you're downloading. So if you look for, and it's free, so you can just type search for Ubuntu download and click download button on the website. It's from Canonical Group. So when you're buying like a new computer, you'll always have I don't know if you built one, but if you just buy from off the store, you get it already. The computer comes with Windows or Mac operating system. So what Ubuntu, what we're doing is we're actually downloading that operating system because we need to install operating system on our virtual machine. It's like a computer, but it doesn't have operating system. So we are the one now installing operating system. Okay, so if you have VirtualBox installed, you can now click on New. And if you have Ubuntu already. So now if you have this, it will ask you what's the name of your computer and which folder do you want to install it on and what ISO image. So this is the operating system. We'll go to download. Maybe I haven't downloaded it. Yeah, I haven't downloaded it myself. Well, it's not letting me download, so I have my USB stick. Oh, sorry, everybody. You have to click on actual version and click download. This will take a long time, so if, you can do it at a later time. But yeah, essentially you're just downloading it, and in the Oracle, it asks you for it. So if you click the right folder where you have an ISO image, yeah, you can just select that ISO image there. And you have to specify which operating system it is. So by default, it'll be Microsoft Windows, but you can click on Linux and just use the default and click next. And for first-time users, just use a default option available. It's very simple, and you just click through and install. Once you have that, then it will actually show you. Now you have to set up the whole. If you ever buy a computer for the first time, it asks you what time zone you are in, like what your username, do you want this installed or not? So it's very same, like a similar setup, just on Linux. And also I have all these made into a video from last year. So because we changed the name of our program, it's not showing up on our current YouTube. But if you go to the website, at the very bottom of our website, there is MMID coding, like an old YouTube channel. From there, here is the virtual machine setup guide. So I have step-by-step showing exactly what, how it would look when you're setting it up for the first time. So I will move on to, yeah, do you have a question? Oh, yeah, you can, it says it will, like, it will ask you that it's gonna affect your network setting.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just click yes, it doesn't really.
Doesn't.
It doesn't. It's just that there might be a disruption. So if you're worried about disruption, then you should do it later time, but it doesn't really do anything. Okay, so I'll move on to the next. So now if you are thinking you're a bit more advanced and you're ready to really use your computer system to try, this is go-to for Windows users. So if you're a Mac user, you already have terminal. You don't really have to do anything. But for Windows user, because our default shell is PowerShell, you can't use Bash without enabling Windows subsystem for Linux. Now, why you want to use Bash on Windows? Well, it depends on where your lab, like which computer system you use in the lab. So most of our public health labs at the NML are based on, they're using Windows operating system. So we don't really have Mac option unless you get your own Mac computer. And so that's why it's easier to just run data analysis directly on your computer and using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Now, Bash terminal, if you have this enabled, you can run Bash on any shell. So even though our default shell is PowerShell, but you can type Bash and it will convert your environment into Bash or command prompt or any other terminal programs. So this is really great. And if you're if you're trying to look into developing a pipeline, maybe look into using Windows subsystem for Windows users. Now, the only downside is that if you have Windows subsystem for Linux, anything that you do on this terminal is could be very dangerous. So you might accidentally delete something. There is no trash can. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind. If you delete something by accident, then it's done deal, unless you enable the terminal like a trash can. But from what I know, I don't think I have that ability unless it's a server computer or maybe there is. So if there is and you figure it out how to do it, then you can teach other people. So for this one, okay, so the first thing when you want to use, like if you're a Windows user, if you want to use this, you have to enable the programs feature, and this is available on control panel. So you can go to control panel and click on programs. Now, if you go onto the programs, there is turn Windows features on or off. So we'll click on this. And if you scroll down, there is a little box beside Windows subsystem for Linux. It probably is unchecked for you. So all you need to do is click a check. And if you are on Windows 11 operating system, you would have to look and also check off for virtual machine platform. So you need both of this enabled in order to use Bash on Windows computer. So once you have this enabled, you click OK. And if you're first time using this, you have to, it will ask you to restart. Sorry, this is totally my fault. If you have to leave Zoom for a bit, then we can wait 5 minutes. Just let Rose know, then we can wait until you come back. For me, I've already enabled it, so it wouldn't show up. So I'll wait for people. So for people, I'll just repeat it again. So first you have to look for a control panel, open it up, click programs, turn Windows features on or off. And then it will show you. You can restart later too, if you don't want to restart it now. But yeah, the important ones are virtual machine platform for Windows 11 if it's unchecked, and Windows subsystem for Linux. And just click OK. And once you have this ready, if you're on Windows, you should have access to your, you should have access to your Microsoft Store. This is a bit different than the canonical Ubuntu that we downloaded from the web. That's for ISO image. This is an application, and you need to install an application. If you go to the store, you'll have this Ubuntu. The first thing that pops up is what you want to install. And this is an application, not the ISO image. And it says here, install a complete Ubuntu terminal environment in minutes with Windows subsystem for Linux. So this is the right version you want to use. Now, once you've restarted your computer, you have this WSL enabled, and you've installed this application. The first thing, if it's new, like you haven't opened this, it will ask you your username and your password. That username and password, you can set it to whichever you want, but you need to remember, because that's your administration power. So if you want to install anything and it will something like super users do, you always need this. It's a very powerful command. In order to do any installation, they will ask you, what's your super user command? And that's what you've used to set up on Linux first time, like the Ubuntu first time. So if you forget your Ubuntu username and a password, I would say uninstall Ubuntu and reinstall. So that's an easy way to reset your password and username. Anybody stuck? Yeah. Actually, you can use Windows subsystem for Linux on your science computer at the NML, and you can use cluster directly from there. You don't need to use virtual machine. The only downside of virtual machine for fact people are, if they do, they have to. I don't think they have the ability to talk directly from virtual machine to the cluster because it's seen as a different entity of computer. So I'd recommend if you're trying to run something on cluster from your Windows computer, just use the Windows subsystem for Linux. Yep, 22.04.1. And I think that's, if you select the first one that pops up, that's the automatically default, the latest version. So if they search Ubuntu, is people not seeing this page?
Yeah.
Which?
Oh, they couldn't find it. Yeah.
Mm. Like nothing pops up on the Microsoft Store? Yeah. Can people find it on the website and then get in store that option? Oh. A work one? Are they on old computer? Do you know if they're from NML? Or Science Network? Oh yeah, I have access. Are they on the old version of computer though, or is it newer?
Yeah.
Is a person at the NML? If they're at the NML, they can come, like I can check their computer and then help with the installation. Okay, sorry, that's too far. I'm in Winnipeg. Yeah, maybe you can message, you can send me an email later and then that's true. Yeah. Okay. If they have, if anybody have problem, they can feel free to send me an email like at the MMID Bioinformatics Workshop at gmail.com, and then I'll try to help from there. Oh, so the thing with on the bash or terminal, if it's something password like sensitive information, it will not show you. It will not show you typing it, but you still typed stuff. Yeah, that's probably a big difference. So yeah, you should get used to it. Something like password or sensitive information, it will automatically be hidden on the terminal. So it will not show up. So don't worry that if you try typing in something and then it doesn't show up, it actually did receive an input. Okay, so we'll put that aside and go on to the last one. So yeah, really just installing R and RStudio is the last component for today. So if you already have R and RStudio downloaded, if you're not, you click on R, you type R on the website. And the first thing that pops out, it will say the R project for statistical computing. So if you go onto the website, I would recommend going to the CRAN first on the left hand side of your page. And click underneath Canada, click the mirror for Manitoba Unix user group. This is just to help them know which location or where you are located at, and it will help you install packages that are available for a specific region. So if you click on it, it will lead you to download R for Linux, for Mac, or for Windows. So select the right operating system, and you'll get an executable file. So start that, execute the installation. Before you install RStudio, you need to install R, because RStudio is an environment that uses R as a default programming language. Okay, so just to repeat this, so go to R, click type R in the website. Click the R project for statistical computing. Now go to the CRAN on the left-hand side of the list. Click on it. Scroll, or yeah, at the bottom, we're in Canada. It also depends on which region you are in. So if you're somewhere else outside of Canada, go to the country that you are in and select the region that most suits your, or that's most close to your location. For us, we're in Winnipeg right now. So we're going to click on Manitoba Unix user group. So click on the CRAN image and click download R for operating system that you have. And then it will show you install R for first time. Once you have R installed, you need to now go into RStudio website. So again, type on the website RStudio, and it will come up as POSIT or POSIT. I'm not sure how it's called. And click on download RStudio. And then scroll down, you'll get download RStudio. It'll show up as a list here. RStudio desktop is free, so we're going to use the free version. And you click download. Now it will also give you the install guide that I just showed. You need to install R first, and then RStudio. And based on what your operating system is, the website will automatically recognize and give you the option to install the right operating system, RStudio. If what you want is not there, you can also scroll down and select different operating system. And just click on it and start the installation process. And once you're done, it will have you'll be able to start RStudio on your computer. Okay, so I think we've covered everything on the learning objectives. So now that we've reached the end of our workshop, I will make this slide available on our GitHub webpage. I hope everybody got it from the Eventbrite links, I got email. If not, you can always find this on the website, on our MMID Coding Workshop website, where the GitHub link is too. So for this one, I say really the basics of everything is just understanding what command line interface is and the basics of how to use bash terminal. So it's a shell. Once you know one shell, you know how to work in it, it's very similar, like Z shell, PowerShell. They're kind of like similar in terms of not the syntax, but the way things operate. It's very similar, the structures. So you can quickly figure out. It's kind of like if you know how to speak English, you can easily learn French versus if you and then if you know second language, you can learn the third language much easier, much quicker, and so on. So the more you know, the better it gets. And you just need to practice a lot more, maybe spend some few hours every day, just until you get the hang of it. But it's not the end, so there's always more of the free resources available, and it's keep coming. So there's so many resources, whichever that works for you, select one and try to go through it. Personally, the ones that I found very useful were the bash guide, the one that are starred, and the learning of command line to be dangerous. This is a very fun chapter of reading, and it actually kind of gets you to go through as if you're trying to do hacking, or maybe you're oh, so dangerous, now you know how to use bash, so you can kind of immerse yourself into it. So I found this is really fun and useful resource. There are other great videos available, so if you're into maybe you want to use bash more than RStudio, then this is the videos to go into. But if you like to use RStudio for statistical analysis, that will come later. And yeah, so there are also free resources, a lot of good resources available. I'm more of a bash person, so I use bash more often, but yeah, I also use R for data visualization. And it's great to have multiple command programming language to use. So with that, that's really the end of today's session. So if you if you have, before you go, we would greatly appreciate it if you could fill out on beside the Q&A, there is a exit survey tab. So if you could fill it out and give me a feedback, because I'm also a student and I'm learning how to give a presentation, better presentation. And I hope this is less fast paced compared to last year, because I got a lot of feedback last year that I was speeding through a lot of contents. And so I hope I'm at a better pace now after I've got some nice feedbacks. So yeah, we would greatly appreciate it if you could give us a feedback. It's just 3 questions. So yeah, and that's it for today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email. We'll try to get to it when we have time. We're all graduate students, so we might not answer questions right away, like our emails, but we'll try our best. And if you also are on the Slack channel, you can post a message. And anybody who's familiar or who knows how to deal with the problems, like troubleshoot, they can help out as well. So yeah, feel free to network and interact with each other too, because we're all in this together. So yeah, well, that's it. And so thank you so much for coming today. Yeah, we hope to see you next week. So the registration registration deadline is every Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. for the upcoming that week's workshop. So if you could register before, and if you can't make any in-person or networking session, we just ask you to send us an email, because there is a limited spot available up to before the last 2 sessions. So have a great day, everybody. See you next week.